I'm Sydney Terris, and I am a UX designer at Raven Software under the Activision Blizzard King company umbrella for the video game industry. I went to school for women's and gender studies and also physics in undergrad. And during that time, a family friend helped me network with somebody who worked at the Coca-Cola company, and he extended an internship opportunity to me. And he was the director of innovation at the company. So 2 of his direct reports were wonderful, wonderful women who were UX designers. And so they really took me under their wing and showed me the craft. And that was really my start. And then I went back to school and went to grad school for physics and kind of landed at a crossroads of not really wanting to pursue that in a professional way. And most people in the program that I was in were pursuing either professorship or research. So I felt a little bit like the odd duckling. And at the same time, I got an internship at the company I now work at, Raven Software, and I absolutely loved it. Then I came back to school and I had this almost pivotal conversation in my career with one of the PhD students that I worked with, where I made an offhanded, pretty bad joke about how PhD students in physics are miserable. And he with a very confused look was like, "We're not miserable." And what that really told me was that the problems that him and his peers were solving were fulfilling to them. So, even when it's like, "Oh, I hate my job, I still love my job." That's how they felt about physics, and I really didn't feel that way. So a couple days after that, I dropped out of grad school and returned to Raven Software to work full-time. This one is hard. I feel like there's kind of seasons of this, particularly with motivation, but I think one thing is just always learning and educating yourself. I've been working on my master's in UX design, and outside of that, I love to watch, graphic designers on YouTube and follow their channels and just practice copying, like mimicking their work to learn how do they create that shape or that line or that balance. So I love following all kinds of learning and experiences. And then along with that, I think building empathy, particularly in UX design, is really important. So that can be, I think sometimes to me, that's taking a hike and reconnecting with nature and rebuilding empathy with that part of myself. And sometimes that's watching a documentary on a different background that I didn't experience growing up or a life that I didn't live, to just try and understand as much as I can all the different perspectives that people will be interacting with the product from. Although I'll never be able to replace actually living that experience and talking to a person that has, I think I try and do as much as I can to know enough to ask the right questions of those people. And then I think the last thing is just exploring my own passions and trying out new things and being like, I'm going to buy a loom and try out weaving. And this week I'm going to try out buying a lot of plants. So I think exploring all the different arts that you and yourself appreciate helps to be a better designer and to explore new ways of communicating information and talking to a user about a certain topic through the app and explaining, this action correlates to that result, and this might be an area where users are lacking functionality that we can build out. First, I'd like to say that I definitely recognize and am grateful for the privilege I experience as a cisgendered white woman. But with that said, I can definitely pinpoint very specific moments and overarching themes of how it's, as you said, marginalized me during my career at various points. I think one of the things that stands out the most was when I was going through the application process for graduate school for physics, which was sort of like you're still in academia and you're still a student, but you're also applying for what is considered by the school as a employee position. I had an interview with one of the directors of a program at a school in Georgia with a cisgender white man, and for the full 45 minutes of the interview, he berated me on his indignation that I had applied at all as a woman and how it disrespected them as a school, particularly in physics. And so that sticks out a lot as a very specific and easy to point to moment because he really was stating that that was the reason. In my career as a designer, I think it's a bit harder, like you said, when you're in the thick of it. I think emotions get high strung in a project no matter what. But there are definitely even silly moments where, like, working in the video game industry, oftentimes my designs are viewed as being geared towards a new player or a person who doesn't play video games often, because the visual connect between me being a woman and that being different from the idea of a gamer, of a young white man, creates a sense that I am myself not very much of a gamer, or I'm not very good at the games I play. So oftentimes I have to make a more concerted effort to describe the user stories that I'm designing to, and how this supports those user stories. And then I think, sexual harassment happens, and it's hard, and sometimes it's hard to know if it really rises to the level of sexual harassment and what the definition is. So I think that's a general overtone of navigating that as a added challenge and added layer to any career for women in games and women in industries where there are not a lot of women. So that makes it difficult. I mean, some days it's like, oh, I don't want to have to think about this extra layer, but I think always making strides towards addressing it and acknowledging it and sharing that with other women and other ally folk is really important and uplifting. And I think that that's just something that continually gets better. So. I think coming from a physics background, there is a lot of wanting to know the right answer, and that there is sort of a right answer for a lot of things. So I wish that I had been better practiced at acknowledging that most answers are right, even if some are more right than others. They might address a user group better than a different solution. But I think, acknowledging that there are solutions that I might feel passionate about, or I might think are interesting, or somebody else found interesting and I want to explore that. I think being comfortable with saying, I want to explore that, and maybe that was the wrong direction, but we had to at least try, is something that I've gotten better at and I continue to practice. But that would be like one of the big ones, is definitely transitioning from there's a right answer to there's really no right answer. There are only small steps that we can take in the right direction. And then in the games industry, there's a lot of crunch time and there's a lot of stress because it's very project-based. So it's kind of like there's a moment where you're really pencils down and there's no more work that you can do. The product is out in the wild. So that's hard because everybody is so passionate about the game and wants to make each little piece better. So it's definitely an art of learning the work-life balance. I'm sure, like any career, to be like, okay, I can make that better, or I can go home and have dinner with my partner, or hang out with my dog or something. And those things are important too. So practicing self-sustainability is something as well. I think 3 big ones for me are, like I said, being passionate, exploring your own passion and how that really builds up your career and drives the decisions that you want to be making and the challenges you want to take on. But then on top of that, I think the most important ones are networking and practicing. I think, more designers than are expected are totally willing to be like, hey, this is what I like to do, or these are the places I draw inspiration from, even if they're super busy. So I think just reaching out to the designers that a person admires, or following their work on Dribble or whatever it is super powerful. And it's great to talk about in interviews and stuff like that. These are the things I admire. These are the projects I like and the kinds of challenges I want to solve. And then practicing is so important. I would not be where I am today if I hadn't taken small moments to practice while I was at school and stuff. Small moments to practice, just if I wanted to draw a dog in Adobe Illustrator, how would I actually go about doing that? Because it's one thing to admire something on Dribble and another to be able to make it and mimic it, and then a whole other layer to be able to make it without having to trace it or copy somebody else's work, to be able to really make something of your own. So I think it's really fascinating to me to see websites and resumes where people detail passion projects that they've done, where you don't really have the constraints of a budget or a timeline. It's just, if I just could play with this for a while, this is how I would take the product, the next level I would take it to, or the art direction I would include in it. So I think that along with the networking and being able to talk to people about how they got to their solutions is the most important for starting out. The biggest mentors in my life have been two women at Coca-Cola, the ones who took me under their wings and really showed me how, I got an up close look at, like looking at somebody's Dribble page where I got to sit behind them while they worked through Illustrator and showed me how they use vectors to create beautiful shapes and beautiful artwork and visually balance a website and things like that. Some of the real basics that you learn. And then at my job now, both my boss, who is a cisgender male, and my senior coworker, Amber, who is a cisgender woman, have been great mentors to me. They've been really great about uplifting my work and giving me visibility, and also showing me their craft and what they're passionate about. And what they do, both of them do best, is have their own solidified idea of the direction they want to take a solution in, but keep a very open mind about other people's directions and allowing me to explore different solutions that might not be where we end up landing, but where I really needed to explore that to understand why we might end up in this other direction. So they've been the best mentors. I haven't ever had somebody flatly shut me down. I guess I probably have had some people not respond, although it doesn't stand out in my mind, which is my advice is just do it. You won't worry about it 5 years later. But for the people that have responded, it's always been amazing. I think one woman I talked to several years ago now, whose name escapes me, she was at the time working in, I believe, London. And so she helped me work out a time with her to talk on the phone that worked for both of the time zones. And she really took time out of a very busy life to do so. And I think that meant a lot to me. And then other than that, I think designers are very happy. I think like any artists are very happy to talk about their work because it is their craft and their art. And generally designers feel attached to that and want to help people on the other side of the design see the beauty in that. So I think that talking to people more casually about the work that they've created, particularly the work that they've been most passionate about, is a really great experience and well worth the couple of DMs that might not get responded to. I definitely have dealt with it. I think I don't have good things to pinpoint about how I overcame it. Mostly, I think working on teams where I knew that my peers and my boss were champions of women in some way helped me feel that I had a safety net to fall back into and that I could take more of the risks. I would say that a lot of research shows that cisgendered men take at their jobs. So I think doing that enough times helped me both practice and feel more comfortable in the work that I had done, where it was, again, just an uplifting environment. And I think that slowly over years helped assuage some of those fears. And then I also have worked in smaller teams and smaller subsets of teams. So while I worked at Coca-Cola, which is of course a large company, I worked in the IT part of the company, which was much smaller. And then Raven Software has about 220 employees. So working on a team of about 5 in each and then about 200 employees at the larger level, it helps to know the individuals I'm working with better and see this is going to sound horrible, but see the flaws in their work and where I can, from the outside of the environment art department, say like, oh, that tree doesn't look super realistic. And see how those same critiques of my work coming from outside the department are not critiques of my abilities. They're just suggestions that I might want to pay a little bit more attention to that tree or that widget in UI. So I think it's just, for me, has been a very slow process of taking small risks and getting positive feedback or not overly negative feedback and taking a little bit more and a little bit more. That's all. Thank you.